Welcome to another live edition of Blacklisted Radio. It is good to be back. As always, it's the 29th day of January 2017. I'm your host, Doug Owen, as always. And you can go to my website, blacklistednews.com. I hope you do. Most of you probably listen to this show do so because of the coverage, the analysis that we provide on the website. And this is kind of the weekly wrap-up. We do it live Sunday night at 9 p.m. Central Standard Time. I love doing interactive radio. Live radio is always, it's just fun. I've been doing it for probably going on now over a decade. Used to do it daily. Saw some of the comments last week on the podcast, and people, some of the longtime listeners, you kind of forget how long you've been doing this, but, one of the guys there posted a comment, said, I really miss Oracle Broadcasting when you guys did this show 5 days a week. And I just thought about, I was talking with Ken, the producer of this show there at Republic Broadcasting, and, just to get this hour to be dedicated and the time that I put into the preparation of the show. It might not sound like it, but I do actually put a lot of preparation into it just to get this hour, or, with commercial cutouts, of 48 minutes of talk time. So I'm sure, like most of you out there, you are just, I don't know how many of you are really taking in a lot of media right now. I've gotten more than my healthy diet of media this week. Watched a lot of PBS, a lot of NewsHour, watched some of the Sunday shows today. And let me tell you, it is nothing less of freaking amazingly crazy rhetoric that we're hearing. I was talking with a friend of mine, and he said, "Oh man, this guy Trump." And I'm not going to spend a lot of time on Trump tonight. By the way, before we get to it, I guess I should just plug the website, blacklisteradio.com. You can call us 800-313-9443. You can text the show anytime you want, 512-222-3067. And blacklisteradio.com is the hub. Exclusive content, all sorts of cool stuff there. So, he was talking about the EPA ban. If you haven't heard about this, basically the Trump is shutting down the EPA. He's gagging scientists, and this is authoritarianism to the extreme. We're now going to have an environmental dictatorship in the United States of America. And I just, I wanted to look at this because I'd heard so much on NPR, all of the media outlets, even the alternative media and kind of left-handed media that's, more environmentally concerned. Common Dreams comes to mind, truthout.org. A lot of these websites that I love their coverage of genetically modified organisms, but when it comes to, capitalism and, of course, Donald Trump, the coverage is nothing less than hyperbolic. I mean, it's over the top. So anyway, start digging in, go right to the New York Times, and actually found a pretty reasonable piece of genuine journalism. And 8 or so paragraphs into this article, you read from several EPA scientists that this is no big deal. This is what happened under the Barack Obama White House, the transition between George W. Bush's White House and his EPA to Barack Obama. During that time, they halted all contracts because they have to review them. They have to look at all of the money that they will be spending. And this is pretty standard operating procedure. Most of the funding was restored by Friday. And, I mean, yeah, you don't want them, I guess, tweeting out or, all of these things that are going to be happening because everything's subject to review. And the more and more I read about this EPA takeover, the more I realized that this is just a non-story. It's more what we now talk about often is fake news. The same thing's kind of going on with this refugee ban. The 7 countries, 7 Arab or quote-unquote Muslim majority countries that have been singled out. And, of course, when it comes to terrorists, there's quite a few of them that have come from places like Saudi Arabia. You're not going to get a lot of that in the mainstream media. We're not going to talk about how Saudi Arabia is primarily the majority funder of radical Wahhabist and other Salafist terrorists. 9/11, 19 of the hijackers were from Saudi Arabia. The 28 pages has proved that Saudi Arabia has been financing terrorism. And we could talk about, everything from the country of Qatar to even Chechnya. There's, 48 other Muslim countries that, if you want to call them that, and that's one of the things the ACLU and all of these lawyers that want to go after and sue the White House for this executive action, which has led to what reminds me of a Tom Hanks film called Terminal, where there's this guy who's stuck in the terminal and he can't get out and he can't get his passport and nobody's going to take him. He's in limbo and he's basically exiled to walk the airport. I imagine something like this is happening, a temporary ban. And as much hype as there has been about this, basically you have less than 100 people that have actually been stopped and will go through further screening beyond whatever kind of scrutiny you get there from the vetters, the Department of Homeland Security, TSA, possibly CIA. With the refugee program, there's up to a year of vetting, but the left would like you to believe that there has never been a refugee that has been admitted into this country that has ever caused a terror attack or been part of a terror attack. It's really the white supremacists. It's really homegrown terrorists right here in this country, and that's just not true. 20 vetted refugees who turned to terrorism after being allowed into America is the headline that came from Information Liberation. Chris Menahan does a good job of highlighting these type of stories, while the media is lying and perpetuating the lie. Refugees do not pose a terrorist threat. The facts show otherwise. Senator and soon-to-be Attorney General Jeff Sessions compiled this list of refugees turned jihadists in 2016. So whether or not these are just kind of FBI honeypots, people that are rabble rousers, and they meet up with the Fed, who has the money, the drugs, everything that is needed for him to execute this grandiose terrorist attack. And then they give him a cell phone, he punches a code, and then they arrest the guy. I mean, a lot of these are kind of contrived, but there's plenty of refugees that have come into this country that are ne'er-do-wells and have caused problems for the United States of America. And that's not an alternative fact. That's just the reality. The inconvenient truth to this, I think that the ban itself is kind of pointless in a lot of grandstanding, or maybe Trump is trying to position himself, and that's what we've seen over the last weeks, as this champion and promise keeper to those people that voted for him. So, you have this. The EPA thing is, when it comes to the environment, we're going to talk a little bit about one of the biggest decisions that has a lot of genuine concern in my heart, and probably most of yours, and that's the expansion of the Dakota Access Pipeline, and of course the Keystone XL pipeline. Now, when Barack Obama shut down the Keystone XL pipeline about 18 months ago, we saw this presentation. He gave a question and answer session about the Dakota Access pipeline, and basically he didn't say it was because of environmental concerns or because this was sovereign land or any of the issues surrounding eminent domain and the taking of people's land or consequences thereof. He said that this was in the strategic interest of the United States. Now, oilprice.com has a great article that brings to light one of the big reasons, I believe, that Barack Obama was anti-Keystone Pipeline, and that is because of his billionaire buddy and financial investor Warren Buffett, who owns the rail lines for what they call the oil bomb trucks, which are these oil trucks that are carried on rail line. Of course, that's where he has made a lot of his money. He is a rail master here in the United States, and in lieu of having some of the pipelines that are needed to bring that sweet crude from South Dakota down to the ports and to the few refineries we have here in this country, he has a virtual monopoly. So oilprice.com did a pretty interesting article. We posted it on blacklistednews.com, and it says that Trump angers Buffett to sign executive orders on Keystone Dakota access pipelines. And it's not because he cares about the environment. He sees that as he's going to lose a lot of money. And it is just day 2 of the presidency, and already Trump is taking a sledgehammer to the Obama legacy. In his latest move, reported moments ago by Bloomberg, President Trump intends to sign 2 executive actions today that would advance construction of the controversial Keystone XL and Dakota Access pipelines, putting a spoke, so to say, in the train wheels of Warren Buffett's train-based oil transportation quasi-monopoly. The orders would fulfill campaign promises made to approve both pipelines, which are still facing strong opposition. So other billionaires will profit, some of Trump's friends. And, when it comes to making America great again, one of the things that I think a lot of, especially Trump voters, would like, and that is to drill, frack and drill the United States. The logic there, the thought process is that if we're not so worried about importing oil when we have lots of oil right here in the United States, we will not get into foreign wars and quagmires. When it comes to the Iraqi oil, of course, Trump has been pretty vocal about wanting to take that for, as a war spoil for the United States of America. And of course, that's not unprecedented. Spoils of war have always been a benefit, or one of the nice things about going to war. And war is expensive, and those people out there that believe in private prison corporations and the like, and the privatized military industrial complex, say, well, hey, we should get some of that money back. We liberated these effing brown people, and it didn't go over very well. And we have the situation there is today, and that is people being basically extorted and terrorized, especially Christian people, and a lot of people, by ISIS and those that the U.S. government continues to support financially and with military armaments. 2016, the U.S. sold billions and billions. Every year we talk about it, billions and billions and billions of dollars worth of weapons to despotic regimes. When you look at some of the countries that have been banned, the Muslim ban, that's what the ACLU wants to say. This is racist. They're going after people based on their color. No, they're going on the basis of failed states and national security. I mean, I feel pretty confident saying that. What's absent is that these are all countries that the United States has intervened or overthrown in the last 20 years. These are all the results of neoliberalism and this globalist agenda by Europe and the United States, the NATO war of terror. So these are all products of the Hillary Clinton brain trust, if you will. So there's a lot of things we talk about Trump, and the analysis and the amount of just talk about Trump just has brought me to the point of ad nauseum. I'm bored of Trump. I know that some of you probably don't listen to the show. I think that we've probably had a decline in listenership because, the President of the United States, because it becomes this focal point not just because of all the negative things that he's doing, but because of all the things that people are still hoping that he will do. Now, I want to talk about George Soros. He comes up from time to time on this show and a lot of shows. He spoke at Davos 2017. I guess it's 2017. Yeah, it is, but I don't know if they would call it. I guess it was in 2017. All right, sorry, confusing myself here. This piece came from Charles Hugh Smith. 2017 Davos Consensus: More Welfare and More Warfare. That's really the solution in the mindsets of those that are part of the deep state, part of the aristocrats, if you will, the technocrats, the central banking and central planners. That is to give more money to the poor and to fight wars, both profitable in a lot of different ways. It's a big club and you ain't in it. Charles writes, I often think of these words spoken by the great comedian George Carlin when I read about the World Economic Forum meeting in Davos. Every year, global elites descend on Davos to discuss the big issues of the day in the Bilderberg-like conclave. Many of them are. This year, George Soros was there. So was Bill Gates. Big surprise. The most important as world leaders go, as do CEOs in the world's largest companies, mainstream media bigwigs, and prominent academics. In short, the bunch of out-of-touch, self-anointed elites meeting to hand down from above their uniformly bad solutions to the world's problems. Then they pat each other on the back for all the good that they're doing, no matter the problem. Their prescription is always more warfare, more welfare, more money printing, more taxes, and of course, more centralization of power and global institutions. The New World Order. And there is a bump in the road. Donald Trump, though some of you probably believe that he is the Trojan horse, that he is leading us to an authoritarian fascist slaughter, that remains to be seen. I hope for the best, and I really do expect the worst when it comes to Donald Trump in the next 4 years. If you expect the worst, if it's shy of that, then huge victory for all of us, or at least you feel a little bit better than you did, rather than shooting high and falling low. You shoot low, and when you land somewhere above that, you feel not as bad as you would have. This is the plan. This has been the plan. This is the old world order, or is what people, like myself, used to call it, the new world order. That used to be a taboo term. You hear world order a lot. So how do you position yourself from crises to benefit? One of the things that's really happening now in India is the demonetization scam, this game that they're playing with the people of India in a push to have more central control, more ability to tax, and more profits for banks. I mean, cash transactions don't bring money to the banker table. That's all there is to it. So there's a lot of reasons that you want to get everybody into a digital currency world where we have almost no control, no physical control over our finances. At any point, if the government finds you out of compliance with one of their corporate backers or with one of the many agencies now involved in your money, they can take it right from your bank account, or they can just shut you off. They can turn your number off, and you become whatever they want, a poor slave. So we'll continue with this thought. Lots more. Your comments are welcome. It's Blacklisted Radio. Getting between you and your money, providing that financial surcharge every time that you buy anything or you dare to take cash out. We've seen this transition, and I think it's a natural transition in a lot of ways to a digital currency. There's a lot of good things that we could say about it. The likelihood that that you would be robbed by another fellow human being, somebody taking your money, your cash money, and being able to respend that with total anonymity. It's very hard to do. They take your card. Yeah, you can track them and get a picture of them wherever they go. And when things look out of, don't look normal, where you're, buying gas in Arkansas one moment and then you're in Nevada 10 minutes later, credit card companies can catch on and prevent that kind of online theft or even virtual theft of money. So people want something or somewhere really safe to put their hard-earned credits, if you will, because that's really kind of what money is. It's time and effort, and it's a way to count that and to be able to turn labor into a benefit and be able to buy something. It's really what most people want. So digital currencies, I mean, when you look at the talking points, all of the reasons that people think that you want to put your money in a bank, all of those great reasons. When I see this, I mean, the worst fears are there, and that is that one day you say the wrong thing, you do the one thing that you're not allowed to do, whatever that may be, and boom, you're like Julian Assange and WikiLeaks, and all of a sudden PayPal shuts off your account. Your debit card doesn't work anymore, and you are hostage. You are a slave. You have to beg and jump through hoops and get some kind of clearance to get your money back. And during that time, if you're lucky enough to get your money back, but during that time, I mean, who knows how long it may take you to reconnect with your money. So people like George Soros see this as a great opportunity, not only the refugees that are causing mayhem in the streets across the world and all of the protesters that are financially backed by George Soros. This one guy has had a lot of impact. He has also found a way to make profits from mass migration. Billionaire activist and arch globalist George Soros just won't let his dream of borderless, culturalist worlds free of Western values die. Soros is now partnering with MasterCard Incorporated to create Humanity Ventures. Okay, anybody that goes on a venture is paying some money to George Soros. The venture is into their pockets with the ostensible purpose of improving the lives of migrants through investments in education and healthcare and fostering economic development in migrant communities. It's interesting. You can make a lot of great points why this is so helpful. All those welfare checks that these people that are coming to these countries like Sweden and throughout Europe that are getting on the dole and getting cash for a variety of reasons are have the ability to spend that money. Now, if you're offended by government giving your money to people that just walked in from a war-torn nation, I understand. There's a pretty appalling article on blacklistednews.com in Sweden. Actually, the government's uncovered this huge scam where people, migrants, new Middle Eastern migrants are taking their new debit cards and the welfare checks that they're getting and using that to actually fly back to, terrorist war-torn nations to visit with family and flying on the taxpayers' dime. That's very infuriating. That's why we have really, I think, this impasse between those out there that want a system of checks and balances. They want what Donald Trump represents, Theresa May, Wilders, the French right, Marine Le Pen. They want some taxation, but only with representation. And they feel like they're getting scammed and their cultures are being destroyed. And there's a very good case to be made there. We will continue on the other side. If you'd like to chime in, 800-313-9443 and online at blacklistedradio.com.
A teenage anarchist, but the politics are too convenient.
Moving to a cashless society. Not shocking if you listen to the show. The fact that there are central powers, especially in Europe, a great piece from Wolf Street that highlights this move, not only in India, which is kind of a testing ground. The U.S. banks are pushing that. We talked a little bit about that a few episodes ago. But the Europeans, part of this European Council, and this is why one of many reasons why you are now seeing this fracturing of the European state, the EU, in this centralized government. Now, you have a few people, mainly Angela Merkel and the stakeholders, Francis Holland, and Italy, that are primarily trying to hold this union together under huge amounts of what they call nationalist. And of course, that is a buzzword in the leftist media for racist nationalists. But they see the power in this. And of course, it's to fight terrorism. We can track and trace every purchase. We can follow people. We can do all of these things that are going to be so advantageous to keeping you safe. Once again, the ultimate push, or the ultimate reason that you and I need government. So Europe's pushing full force with this. It's not a stretch. It's not that. It's just not that radical an idea. But when it comes to Donald Trump, we'll take it back there. I hate to, but I saw this piece from AP, and it really starts to get me thinking, wow, what is in store for this guy? And if the things that he is promising and it seems to be delivering on, if he actually goes forward with this, where will we be? Can the New World Order withstand this? Trump sets 5-year and lifetime lobbying bans on officials. This is huge. This is something that I know that most of you listening, and especially the callers out there, have been talking about for years. I don't know how many people I've fielded calls from, and myself have lamented about this, this revolving door between the military-industrial complex, private contractors of all sorts, between government and crony capitalists, big power brokers, and the DNC, the RNC. This is pretty big. President Donald Trump acted Saturday to fulfill a key portion of his pledge to, quote-unquote, drain the swamp in Washington, banning administration officials from ever lobbying the U.S. on behalf of a foreign government, imposing a separate 5-year ban on other lobbying. Administration officials described the bans as historic in scope, but it was not immediately clear how either one would be enforced. So, I mean, where this goes, who knows? But this is big. This is, when you hear Barack Obama talk about, yes, we can, we need change, we need to get all of this corruption out of politics, we need more transparency. I mean, one of the most transparent and easy things to see is that you have people that have connections, that have intimate knowledge of government needs, that go to private companies that provide those needs, and you have this incestuous relationship. You have the swamp, really, for lack of a better term. It's something that I think is pretty monumental, and the media is more they're going to talk all day long about these poor people that are trapped at the airports, and the Mussolini comparisons, the Hitler comparisons to Donald Trump. I mean, if they could, I think that they would, show pictures of Nazis putting armbands and tattoos on Jews and, asking for their papers. What are your papers? I mean, that's the kind of equation that they would like to make. But this is huge, and you're not hearing anybody. I watched a lot of media today talk about what that could mean. Anyway, where was I going here? Where'd it go? Where'd my article go here? The mainstream media had this little piece. ABC News had this. I guess really it's a heartstring. It's a puller. It's a personal interest piece on some of these people that are stuck. And ABC News is interviewing these Iraqis that are trapped at, I think it's, I forget which airport it was. But anyway, the guy's like, yeah, I love Donald Trump, man. Donald Trump, I don't see this as a big deal. Now, of course, this dude's smart because, why would you want to tell people that you hate Donald Trump and you want, death to the United States? This is unfair. I mean, if you're really whining and complaining and you're already bitching before you've got into the country, then, that's not a good look. So this guy did what I think I would probably do if I was stuck in limbo and hoping to become a U.S. citizen. I would be ingratiating and talking about how wonderful Donald Trump is, and he understands. And maybe it's just, he understands. You gotta be careful. He's coming from a war-torn nation where he's seen a lot of terrorists, and he probably doesn't want them on the same flight home with him either. Regardless, you could just see it was just this epic fail look, and the ABC reporter was just dumbfounded that this guy, who was obviously a victim of this racist Muslim band. I mean, that's the big thing that they're so worried about, is characterizing this as a Muslim band, even though many other nations that have Muslims and not just Muslim, majority populated countries, but other countries around the world that have Muslims that are not green card holders can still come into this country. So, all day long we'll cry about this, but that is a huge, huge blow to a big business. I mean, you think about K Street and all those lobbying firms that have just an immense amount of power in Washington. Hillary Clinton, I remember that famous clip where she said that she went to the Council on Foreign Relations that was right down the block from the White House, because that's where she got her marching orders. Of course, she says that tongue in cheek, is a way to, joke, as you guys are the academics that lead me your policy. So it's a way to, some people took it so literally. See, Doug, she gets her orders from the Council on Foreign Relations. Yes and no, because she's really just saying, these academics, these people here at the Brookings Institute and those kind of functionaries, they are so smart that how could she not listen to them? So you have that. Now, an interesting detail that is not going to get any coverage in the mainstream media, and probably not a lot of coverage even in the alternative media, is a new twist in the Jeffrey Epstein case. Now, I've talked about Jeffrey Epstein. If you're not familiar, please Google him. He is a convicted pedophile. He's a Jewish billionaire and good friend of Bill Clinton. He is now accused of another sex trafficking case involving girls as young as 13. He was already in jail for having sex slaves, literal sex slaves, has a private island. And his private plane, which Bill Clinton has rode upon several times, was nicknamed Lolita Express. This comes from the Gateway Pundit, one of the few blogs out there that has covered this story, along with the Daily Mail, which has a certain tabloid kind of veneer. They do good work, and they have well-paid writers. a lot of good journalism, but because they're the Daily Mail, it's almost like the National Enquirer, but not quite. I would say it's like the European equivalent of TMZ. TMZ does, good reporting. They have their own sports division. They have a lot of, their focus is mostly on entertainment, Hollywood, and bullcrap, but clickbait and bullcrap, but they do have paid writers, unlike a lot of these other organizations. So according to an article in Daily Mail, longtime friend of Bill Clinton, Jeffrey Epstein, is being accused of luring a young woman into his elaborate sex trafficking enterprise by making false promises. From the Daily Mail, disgraced Wall Street mogul Jeffrey Epstein is being accused by a woman of luring her into his elaborate enterprise under the ruse he would use his wealth and his connections to get her into college. There you go. What will you do to get into college? Well, it's a lot easier than going into $100,000 worth of debt. Maybe just be a sex slave. It seems like a pretty viable alternative. Not for me, but maybe some people. She has slapped him with a federal lawsuit in U.S. District Court in New York, demanding damages for forcing her to perform sex acts on him, according to documents filed Thursday, blah, blah, blah. Using the alias Jane Doe 43, the woman filed a federal lawsuit against Epstein, Sarah Kellen, Lindsay Groff, and some other friends. Ghislaine Maxwell. She describes 64-year-old Epstein, then 50, as a billionaire who used his wealth to commit illegal sex crimes in violation of law, and accuses him of having compulsive sexual preferences for young girls as young as 13 and as old as 25. So, we talked about this broad investigation, Pizzagate, the connections to Dennis Hassert, by the Clinton campaign manager, John Podesta, who, is a good friend of this convicted pedophile. And, of course, the mainstream media would love to just call it fake news, hoax, absolutely irrelevant and not worthy of any examination. But this is just another one of these stories, another one of these closely linked pedophiles to very, very influential, powerful people within the DNC, the Democratic Party especially, and that's why I think you're going to have Gateway Pundit, maybe even Drudge Report, and some of these other more, InfoWars, more right-leaning, websites and blogs investigating this aspect. So not to say that Republicans, we can go back to the Franklin cover-up, Boys Town, some of those horrific and very relevant documentaries and things that have happened, and of course the gay male prostitutes in the White House during the Bush era, Jeff Gannon. A lot of those are interesting stories and rabbit holes to go into, but we go right back to this very close relationship with pedophilia and people in power, and how that is used to extort and to blackmail politicians. So, not a lot to take away from that other than it's a huge story. You would think that is as much as the media loves scandal, they love stories that are juicy. This is as juicy as it gets. This is as horrific as it gets, and it would get a lot of clicks. And if that was the focus, and that if they weren't completely in bed with Hillary Clinton, once again, this shows how much control the Clinton empire has, or at least used to have, in the media. The fact that we're seeing more and more of this being reported kind of shows how maybe some of that influence by the Clinton crime family is waning. So I wanted to put that out there because the Jeffrey Epstein story, this horrific man that's a good friend of Bill Clinton, should not be forgotten. He should not be just brushed into history like so many other things end up being. So I wanted to mention this because, there's always people out there that, we hear so much about social justice. Actually, they had the formerly owned by none other than Donald Trump, his what's it called, Miss Universe pageant on, and he used to own Miss Universe. And I just saw this flipping through channels before I started the show, and they're doing the introduction of who's going to be on the show. And one of the ladies, who I guess doesn't have she has an atypical body, just kind of a bigger girl, a little bit more thick in stature, and it had her name, and then it said body activist. And I just thought, what is a body activist model? Look, you're going to have to look at my body even though you don't want to. I just thought, it's kind of a surreal term. It's almost like alternative facts or some of these other, 1984 Orwellian terms being thrown around by people these days. And that is, she is a body activist. People offended by those that think that, a woman that has this boyish body is a perfect 10. And, that's always escaped me when I see supermodels that, don't have any curves. I don't understand it. It just doesn't make any sense to me personally as to why people think that, starving, dehydrated, 85-pound women are somehow attractive. Anyway, I'm on a tangent here. So I saw that, and it just kind of, it threw me for a loop, and this kind of did as well. ADL attacks President Trump for remembering all the victims of the Holocaust. See, this is horribly offensive to say. There were, I guess, 6 million Jews that were killed. I don't know what the number is, and I'm not being, dismissive of that. Just, there's a number, it's an estimate, it's a lot of people that died, but there's plenty of other people that were political leaders, leftists, communists, other trade unionists, just huge demographics of people that were killed during the Holocaust beyond the Jews. Yeah, there was a lot of Jews that were killed, but rather than just focusing on one group and isolating another, why don't you say all of the people that were killed? Oh, that is extremely racist. The ADL has hit out ADL League Chief Jonathan Greenblatt was personally offended and went after Trump for daring to not single out the Jews for being the primary targets during the Holocaust. This is why I think this agenda is failing, because people, they're just not feeling it anymore. Quick break.
And I say, hey, leave it like we're renegades. Hey,
Dari, welcome back. Sometimes I find that I am out in the weeds here in the show, but that's one of the fun things about doing it. I can really go off of what people are saying in the chat room and kind of, take the show in a lot of different directions. And that's what I like to do. So all of the people out there that continue to support us financially, I appreciate it so much. You can use Bitcoin through BitPay to pay us in Bitcoin, one of the many digital currencies out there, from PayPal all the way to snail mail and physical checks. Your contribution helps us continue to do this, and the point of this show is to be for the listeners, not for commercial sponsors. If you donate to the show, it's really for the listeners, and those people are the producers of this show. So, we're honored to be in our 10th year and to have just had the pleasure and honor of meeting so many cool people along the way. Cool, smart, and interesting people that constantly push me and really inspire me to do this radio show. And in all of those people that are kind of the soul and really the intelligence community that that we use to bring news on a daily basis and to do this podcast. So to all of you, kudos. Thank you for your continued support. If you haven't supported the show, you are a bum. You are a bum, sir or ma'am. You can go to blacklistedradio.com and make a small donation or a large one. We appreciate those more. So, the ADL was pretty upset about this release by Donald Trump, basically, and you could read it. He said that, to all the people out there, we're sorry, and it's horrific, and we should remember this, and this is why we don't want to go down this road again, and that's why we need to make America great again, kind of thing. And they are just so upset about the non-mention of the Jewish people, not to mention all the money that we give Israel each and every year, the financial support, not to mention they have so many senators and Republican Congress people on their dole working at their interest, maybe even more so than for their constituents. I mean, somebody like John McCain or Lindsey Graham is more worried about what's happening in Israel and more worried about their gun rights than they are about their own constituents. In Israel, you've got to have a gun, man. Gun rights are great. Not so much for people here in occupied Gitmo Nation, if you will. So there is a lot to be said about that. It gets into a grand debate, but you just see how defensive and I think the Jewish state has just extorted people for so long, and they have constantly said, "Look, everybody's attacking us. Give us millions of dollars. Everybody's after us. Give us more money. You need to give us." We need to take your guns, but over here we need more and more guns. Give us money. And I just, it falls on deaf ears with me. I'm sure many of you, it's kind of a sign of the times. They're taking from the snowflake generation of cry woe as me. I don't know if that's going to work anymore. We'll see. I don't know if Trump's listening to all the crybabies. All right, guys, I want to thank you for your time. I know it's very valuable. The fact that you listen to the show and spend it with me is an honor. I will be back next week for another live edition of Blacklisted News Radio. Big thanks to Ken. They're producing the show and all the people at Republic. And, you, the listener, thank you. Take care.